General Khandare ji, distinguished panelist. You must be all thinking what I'm doing here, speaking about fake narratives and effect on the armed forces. I am not from the army. I haven't spent much time in the army. And there are so many distinguished people who have seen action, who know what is the army. But I'm going to speak about something which I feel is my professional experience as an HR person. And I think the whole concept of fake narratives, it's not just affecting the army. I'm going to speak specific about the armed forces, but let me talk about, or let me ask you one question. How many of you know what happened in 1857 in India? Yeah? Okay, so how many of you think it is a mutiny and how many of you think it's a freedom struggle? So what happened, see the narrative, what we are speaking about, many of the panelists have spoken about that the narrative is related to social media, but I particularly don't think that the fake narrative is something which starts with the social media. Social media definitely has added to the fake narrative because it is an amplifying agent, like whatever social media you may be using, maybe it's a WhatsApp or any other thing like Facebook or any other medium, it is only amplifying the situation. But why I'm quoting this example is, when I was reading a book a couple of days back, I was taking the history chapter for my son. And I was really amazed to read the CBSE 8th standard textbook, where they have said that they were trying to drive a narrative rather that there was an uprising in the army during 1857, which is also our first freedom struggle. And what happened there exactly is, what they said is, there was a misinformation which was spread in the army by some people in 1857 against the British rule that British are coating the cartouche with some fat of animals which are respectful to pig and cow fat. And this was a chapter which my son was reading, and I was amazed to see that what are we reading. And he just looked at my face, and it said that there's a misinformation which is spread amongst the army that resulted in the mutiny of 1857. So it is shocking to note that a freedom struggle, which we find that it's one of the first freedom struggles of India, is said to be a mutiny which is based on some fake narrative which is driven by Indian people. So this is how it is. So, and there are some other chapters also which speak about that. You can just read the history book and you'll be amazed to see what all is being told about it. And then, like an inquisitive person, I just looked around to see who are the people who write such books, and some of the names again I don't want to quote, but you can just pick up CBSE 8th standard book and you will understand. So what are we feeding our children is an important thing. So I would like to differ on this point that social media is the only thing that is spreading a fake narrative. Fake narrative is there since, somebody said since Mahabharata, there is a fake narrative, and even the Britishers have used it. I have just gathered one particular data. Does anybody know exactly how many people are there in the armed forces? Total, combined armed forces? So it's like 14 lakh are active personnel approximately, and reserve personnel are 11.5 lakh. So this is what I gathered from Google. It may be different, journal may know better, but this is what I got. So do you understand the magnitude of people, one fake news which can affect a lot of people around? So is it a new way of cyber war on the armed forces? Because one more thing you have to realize, that armed forces is a very closed group. It is a very closed network of people who stay together, away sometimes from the family, at border areas where no other information can reach them easily. Because when we say food is cut out from them, when we say there are no roads, so does it not mean that even information is cut out from them? So how much will a fake news affect an armed personnel more than what you see today? So today, if I'm hearing about fake news in a social media TV channel, immediately within 5 minutes, I can always go ahead and look at some other channel which is talking something, or some newspaper, or I can Google out. But what about the story which is reaching an armed forces personnel? And how much effect will it have on that personnel, or their families, or their closed group, at a certain area which is a very strategic location? I wanted to start my discussion with the subject that control on mind actually wins the war. So this is a very important thing we have to realize, and somehow this fake narrative, which is reaching faster than anything else in the world today, the information, the data, is something which can really create a lot of difficulty in the armed forces in case we don't control it at the right time. You cannot stop the use of smartphones. This is what even I think General Bipin Rawat spoke a couple of days back. And today I think Air Marshal Dhanua spoke that armed forces are suffering because the sleep deprivation is happening in the armed forces because they are spending a lot of time on social media. Now, yes, the schedule is very tight for all the people who are there in the armed forces. They follow very disciplined life. But yes, the sleeping time is also limited, and if they are continuously looking into social media, then it is going to affect. So, and on top of it, what is the information that is going to them? So like I said, I'm here to speak on some HR points. So some studies have revealed that repeating a false claim again and again increases its believability. So this is the first thing. Second is knowledge of truth does not necessarily protect the illusion of truth. Okay, so this is the second point. Third thing is science of fake news is more psychological rather than technological. So this is a very important factor. Like we heard many people talking about that artificial intelligence can control fake news, but it is more of a psychological war rather than a technological war. Fake news is very compelling and it tends to move faster. I think General Khandare just spoke about it, that it moves faster than what is the true news. It spreads as aggressively by humans than by bots. So if we say that bots are only spreading fake news, that is false. It is more spread due to human influence. And the last thing is when we look at the news, how much do we look at the credible evidence and how much do we look at the repeatability? Each one of us can answer that fact. Like I said, now if we are not, as people who are sitting in cities or in villages, who have control over different social media channels or news channels or Google or whatever, or internet accessibility, if we look at credible evidence, how much do we look at credible evidence? Like recently in a group, it happened that somebody had spread a news and I pointed out that, hey, it's not a real news because it is spread from something called as times how and not times now. But N और H के बीच में ये फर्क सबको नहीं समझ में आता है. So do you think that the person who is sitting at the border or person who is sitting in a strategic location has so much of agility that he will look into the fact whether it is now or how? You know, that is very important. One more research has shown that subjects who have low cognitive ability, they find it very difficult to adjust their opinion about a matter even after the truth is revealed. So this is an experiment conducted on 400 people who were fed with a fake news data, and then the news was countered by somebody and it was told that, you know, this is all fake news what has been given to you. But again, when the research was conducted about labeling a person's abilities, it was found that the person who had originally rated, the ratings did not differ much because people with low cognitive ability still continued to believe that the person was not the right person, because first time whatever got communicated, the person could have, you know, built a mindset that this information is true. One more important fact which is to be discussed here is fake news is not always just to spread fake news, but it can be also to get some reactions from some other persons who kind of start discrediting the stories. And when the person starts discrediting the stories, the original person gets mileage because the original person's name again and again gets repeated. And sometimes the factor also leads to creating a sympathy in the mind of person towards the original person, even though the original person may be wrong. So when we keep on, you know, saying, no, this is not true, or this is not what you are saying is, you know, a fact, it keeps on happening that by unnatural way, you know, the name of the person or the incident keeps on happening in our minds and we tend to remember it more, and at some point, like I said, the repeatability starts making us somewhere believe that it is true. So fake news also makes the right person look defensive at many times. And this also causes a lot of image issue. Now, very, very important thing is people have a difficult time rejecting misinformation. These are all research studies which have been conducted at different parts of the world. And sometimes the fake news is generated just to create engagement over the social media. And when you try to create engagement over the social media, you try to get a pulse of what is happening in the society. And in this way, data mining is happening in a big way. So there are a lot of companies who are doing a huge amount of data mining on the basis of spreading fake news. The psychological mapping of the subjects of a country, citizens of a country, I'm sorry, is happening over this fake news. So fake news can distort people's belief even after it has been debunked. So these are some of the studies which have happened. And of course, like many people have spoken about communal polarization. Now let me just take a few very small examples. I mean, fast, I'll just go through it. We recently heard about a uniform row over the forces. There was a discussion where, you know, it was said that some of the armed forces have to pay for their personal clothing or something like that. And this created a lot of chit-chat around in the environment. There were big articles written about it. And then it was told that 10,000 is the pay allowance which the 7th pay commission has given to the personnel. So it was all fake news. But just think that this information reaches to the people who are sitting at the borders. Secondly, we saw what happened during the Kerala flood case where armed personnel, a person wearing armed army officers' clothes was spreading some fake news. So it took some time for the army to actually post on the Twitter that this is a fake news. But how many of the people are reading Twitter and understanding that this is fake news? Third was, I think somebody pointed out also about the food quality of the soldiers. Then Major Gaurav spoke about the incident of human rights violation. And first day you get this article about human rights violation, and next day you get the armed personnel dragging a person on the road. So it's like somehow it seems, you know, related to each other. Incidentally, recently a leading daily had posted an article that Indian Army fears that US will leak data to Pakistan during the 2x2 discussion. I don't know what was the reason for such kind of information. Some liberal YouTubers also posted about some videos about the uniform row which I was talking about. Then there was a news which was coming from Pakistan saying that 158 army soldiers were killed. The biggest fake news that we hear is surgical strike was fake. So these are some of the things which have happened and which have influenced our society. So like I said, when I talked about all the research, you can understand if these case studies are there and if you support the research with these case studies, you can understand how it will affect. Now coming to the solutions, when we talk about modernizing defense, one very important thing which needs to be looked into defense is that we need to create a defense-specific fake news assessment mechanism which is different from the overall national security or the common public-oriented thing. The reason is because first thing is the defense is really cut off from the rest of the country sometimes because of their locations, and it takes a lot of time to communicate back to them what is fake and what is not fake. UK has already started doing this. Cyber war can affect the morale of the armed forces and their families. It can lead to long-term effects on the defense like low recruitment. If there are fake news like this which are spreading, then people will not join the armed forces. There can be disincentives. Like in a corporate world, we talk about brand valuation, and everybody says, okay, if the brand image gets affected, people will not join. It's the same thing. Somebody is trying to harm the brand of the defense forces. And this is something which we need to really take care of, because if this people may not join the armed forces, even though we know that this is one of the best ones in the world. Prejudice against the armed forces can gradually start building, because I said the repeatability angle comes through. So if this is something. Finally, I just want to tell you one thing, that it is a slow poison, and it starts right from the level at which a child gets educated. And if this is the kind of narrative which keeps on building, then it can affect society as a whole, the armed forces as a whole. So, Pawanji was talking about WhatsApp. So definitely WhatsApp is one of the most important means in which things are spreading. And recently we have even heard that there are instances where Chinese troops get into the WhatsApp groups, and plus 86 is the number, you be aware and all these things. But you know, these are some basic things. I think we need to look at it in a broad level and also understand that it has a long-term effect, maybe because the recruitment can suffer in the long run, the brand value can suffer in the long run, and if there are conscious elements which are feeding in such data, especially from outside the country, then it is something which cannot be neglected, and we have to take some strong steps in this regard. Thank you.